For me personally, actually, the journey of what it meant to meaningfully engage families has been remarkably a growth experience. When we first started, we were mindful that we definitely needed parents to advise us. And we had a family advisory council from before the doors of the clinic opened. And yet, we would, for instance, do a focus group about this or that. But what we didn't realize is we needed families to actually help us decide that we need a focus group and what the agenda for that focus group needed to be. So we still were not involving them right at the top, at the designing the service. And then how do we get input from families should be a discussion with family leaders.
How you do it is by asking a family member to help you decide how to do it and create a program that works well for your context and where you are in your community, and just start there.
How I think of it in my mind is that if you have a concept for a project that is intended to benefit your patients or families, think of families first, to have them be a member, an equal partner at your table. Like, don't even take the next step before you start to incorporate families into your planning process.
As a very close observer and feeling a personal transformation myself, what I thought I understood after many years in Title V about family engagement, family partnership, is very different from the way I see it now. I have a much more focused lens, and I see that to truly engage families, that needs to happen at the outset. And as has been said, as by the time you get to the decision making, that's late. We're late.
We don't have to wait until things are really formed and pretty and ready to be presented to bring families. So it's kind of like the earlier, the better. It's okay to be completely chaotic, and that's just the way it's going to be.
I think that so many times we involve families in an advisory capacity, like we run things by them, or we already had made the decision within healthcare and we just want to kind of get a rubber stamp from families. And putting them really in a position of co-creating the service model, like you said, is so different, and co-design. That's where I think it's at. And that's why they have to be compensated, because they are part of your thinking together, not just approving. And that's where I would like to see more families and how they're engaged, is as co-designers, co-creators.
The involvement from our family has not always been as engaged as it has been in the last several years, where they're truly involved in the design work, as opposed to assigning more individual kind of tasky type things, is kind of a lack of better terms for me, or giving or contributing feedback to the way that an app might look or a policy might read. That's when we didn't feel like we had very meaningful family engagement. It was not until we had involvement at the level of design. And where we've been most successful in the last 24 months has been the fact that we put families in the design of the evaluation. And I think that is really, really where the work needs to begin. And then you have to prepare yourself for it's going to get messy, because then if you're really lucky, you get an evaluation that you get great feedback, and then put on your roller skates, because then you've got to change your service model according to what it is that your evaluation tool was. But that's the whole point of it all. So if I could have just skipped over some of those more task-like things that we used to try and involve our families with, I wish I could skip over that part and get instead to this really meaty part, which is, you have to ask families, how are you doing? Even if it's with just the model that you're in, even if it's not with designing a new model yet, ask them, how are you doing? And not just patient satisfaction, like truly asking them what matters to you and how are we doing in the service that we're providing based on what matters to you.
Families, just by the very nature of living this day to day, are the most likely to ground the questions and keep us from doing some ridiculous stuff. So anytime we have well-represented family inputs, we learn a lot of things that we never thought about. So it's just so much better work. It's so much better design, and it avoids a whole lot of pitfalls that people who don't live the problem day to day would never be able to think about.
We finally realized just the huge importance of the fact that the individuals who are receiving the service model are those who have to develop the evaluation model, the feedback of how that service is being delivered.
And to comprehensively think the entire continuum from idea generation to design to implementation to evaluation should be fully informed by families who sit with us and think through. Definitely requires a whole lot of humility and respect for their lived experiences and all manner of experiences that they bring, but also a need for transparency, because these are sort of institutional cultures that we live in, where what do we share? We share the budget. We share where the budget shortfall is. We share some of the expectations that we have from leadership that may or may not align with, or by expectations from payers that may or may not align with what we want to do.
Back in 2018, we ended up with a family liaison, but only since 2018 was that family liaison full-time position a parent of a child with complex illness. By having that family liaison, I really have someone who I lean heavily on and say, okay, this needs to go back to the family work group.
And I started with the vision of inviting everyone to the table. Whoever showed up, showed up. Did they all stay? No. I've had people ebb in and ebb out, and that's fine because that's where they are in their journey. It's also another point that we need to make is making sure that if you want true family engagement, you are able to be with them when they're able to be fully engaged and when they need to step back, and not think that you should dismiss them in any way just because they couldn't make, 8 out of 10 meetings.
And what we realized, much of what we talked about with that power dynamic is a real thing. And we had to move past that.
With good representation from everyone, especially in a clinic that sees, medical complexity knows no boundaries. We are all, it's an equal opportunity situation.
I am thinking of a colleague on another state team, also with Title V, who noticed that. And that was one of their biggest takeaways, that on the organizational side, whether it's the clinic or Title V, we can set things up and put things in place so family leaders can emerge. And it's up to us to do that and create those opportunities. I'm remembering when you started leading the meetings, and it just felt different. And we had more family work group members coming. And we always heard about the family work groups, but now they're here and they're in the conversation. And I'm hanging on to every word they say, because they're really the heart of our work. I think making sure that those of us working in Title V have experiences like the coin, where they're actually very close to the center, or actually partnering directly with families with the understanding that families are sharing in decision-making, will hold leadership positions, and be paid. We need all our decision makers and funders to share this vision and be committed to it.